The perfect man employs his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing, it refuses nothing, it receives but does not keep. That if I am to talk all the time, I will not have anything to talk about except my own verbiage. If I think all the time, I won't have anything to think about except thoughts. Because when you see you have a silent mind, you're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about the past. You are experiencing the present in a very complete way. Is the meaning of life just to find out what the meaning of life is? To wake people up, to look at that, requires, among other things, interior silence. Now, I've said some of this to you before, or said it to some of you before, but it cannot be stressed too often. The Chinese sage, who was a Taoist, Zhuangzi, said once, "The perfect man employs his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing, it refuses nothing, it receives but does not keep." And this attitude in Zen Buddhism is called mushin, which in Japanese means no mind. We would say mindlessness or thoughtlessness, except that those words in our cultural context have a pejorative sense. To say that someone is thoughtless is to say that he's inconsiderate or moronic. But in the Chinese sense of the term thoughtless, it means having a mirror-like mind. There's a verse which says, "The wild geese do not intend to cast their image. The water has no mind to retain their reflection." The same is sometimes said of the relationship of the moon to the water. Now this no mind means really mental silence in the sense that the mind is highly alert and highly aware, but without talking to itself. When it hears, it doesn't think bird, it doesn't think song, it doesn't think music, it just thinks. And so that means the absence of chattering to yourself constantly inside your head. Whether you're doing it in words, whether you're doing it in numbers, or whether you're doing it in abstract images of some other kind. To become still and to reflect the world as a clear pool reflects the sky. Well, why is that important? Well, I can give at least two reasons. One is that if I am to talk all the time, I will not have anything to talk about except my own verbiage, because I won't listen to what anybody else has to say. In exactly the same way, if I think all the time, I won't have anything to think about except thoughts. So just as I have to stop talking occasionally to hear what others have to say, so I have to stop thinking occasionally to have something to think about. Otherwise, I'm sort of like a bookworm, a person who never gets out of the library, who reads and reads and reads but has no contact with the life that books are about. Now, it's very difficult, you see, to have a silent mind, because we are creatures of habit, and we think incessantly. Now, the second reason is that we are very bothered by our thoughts. One reason why Americans in particular don't like to be alone, and even if they are alone, they turn on the radio or the television or read a magazine, is that they're disturbed by their thoughts. I'm left alone with my thoughts, and I start worrying. Why? Because you live according to a world of conceptions. For example, let's say, what do we worry about? We worry about the future, or we regret things we've done in the past. But the future is not here, and the past has disappeared. The future and the past, as it were, do not belong to the physical world. They are abstractions. And what we remember of the past is a very attenuated image of it, and what we predict for the future is never quite like what happens. In fact, it's very unlike it. If I say to someone, "What did you do yesterday?" they say, "Oh, well, I got up in the morning, I had some coffee, I went for a stroll, then I had breakfast, and I dressed and brushed my teeth, and I went up to the office, and I saw Mr. So-and-so," and so on, you know. But this is, you see, you're thinking of your past day in terms of abstractions, which are have none of, they're like the bones of events and have none of the flesh on them. When you draw an abstract picture of a human body in stick figures, you know, you draw a round blob for the head and then arms and legs, everybody knows at once that's a human being, or meant to be, or represents a human being, but it's not really very like one. It has none of the color, none of the flesh, none of the beautiful texture of a human organism. Well, so in thinking of our past as these rather attenuated, dried out memories, we always seem to have had a life of deprived richness. And therefore, as the more we identify the succession of our days with these abstractions, the more we feel that, well, there's something we're missing. As if you were to make a diet of dollar bills, you would suffer from malnutrition. And if you were stubbornly convinced that what you needed was more, you would have not only malnutrition, but serious indigestion. And so in the same way, if you think that what you need is more time, then you panic about the future. You want more future. And you say of something which is no good, it has no future. But what you should say, it has no present. Because when you see you have a silent mind, you're not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the past. You are experiencing the present in a very complete way. You are not stopping to analyze each detail. You couldn't possibly ever do that. But you are getting all the details without focusing on certain details which exclude your apprehension of the whole. And so you're beginning to live a rich life and a real life that is completely here and now. Now, neither Whitehead, certainly, nor I am taking in this an anti-intellectual position. We are saying that if you do not know completely how to live in the present, you have no use for plans for the future, because you will never be able to enjoy those plans when they mature, because you won't be there. You'll be thinking about some other future. But what's the point? And in the same way, there is no purpose in the intellectual life unless you are fully aware of that which the intellectual life is about. That is to say, present, vivid, real life. The intellectual life is a commentary on that, is a way of measuring it. And as all measurements are useful for prediction and for control, that's fine. But don't get so involved in prediction and control that all you're doing is controlling. You know, like, is the meaning of life just to find out what the meaning of life is? But that's what happens. And one of the things that is explored in the meditations, the disciplines of Zen people and other types of Eastern philosophy, is the exploration of power. We've been into this a little. Would you really like to control everything? Supposing you could. And every wise person, of course, comes to the conclusion that that's not what they want. Because if you controlled everything, there would be no surprises. But we are at present, you see, dangerously living into an era of our civilization in which we are over-controlled. In which, for example, the laws cannot operate because there is too much law. In which you cannot do the simplest thing in the way of an enterprise or of business or of anything without having a battery of lawyers to tell you whether you may do it and how you may do it. And the paperwork that goes with everything you do is absolutely intolerable. Academic paperwork is overwhelming. And you will notice that the records in a registrar's office are kept in safes. They are so precious. But the books in the library are easily stolen. That the recording of what is done is more important than what is done. It's like some people who don't believe anything happens unless they've got a picture of it. And who obsessively take pictures of everything. We're having a lovely time. And somebody comes in beautifully dressed and so on. And we say, oh, what a pity no one brought a camera.